Running for higher office while holding office is a difficult juggling act. You have to balance your official duties and the demands of a campaign and keep a strict separation between the two. That's the challenge facing the two leading contenders for the Democratic nomination for governor this year. WGBH News reporter Adam Riley joins us now with more. Adam?
Thanks, Kim. It is a tricky balance to strike because every decision an elected official makes while running for higher office gets viewed through the prism of politics, whether they're politically motivated or not. And that risk is especially acute for Martha Coakley, who's leading in the polls in the Democratic race for governor while serving as the state's top law enforcement official. And Attorney General Martha Coakley is here. Welcome to Greater Boston, Attorney General. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
How do you handle that sort of dual hat that you're wearing right now? When you're making decisions as Attorney General, are you cognizant of what the political impact is likely to be, even if you're not making the decisions based on politics?
Well, one thing I've always done, certainly as district attorney, running then for Attorney General, or now Attorney General running for governor, I'm very aware of the hats that I wear. Even as Attorney General, I have to be careful as we look at issues around healthcare or energy, because we do represent different divisions and interests. We represent the Commonwealth. We represent the people of the Commonwealth. In particular, as a lawyer and as an Attorney General, I am always going to be transparent about what I do and why, knowing that those questions come up, not just during races, but certainly in the serving of all of our duties.
Are you ever uncomfortable doing something which you know is the right thing because you know that people are going to come afterward and say, oh, she simply did that for political reasons?
No, I'm not ever uncomfortable doing the right thing, and I try to do that, and I also try to explain what I'm doing and why, because I found that if you are transparent about, even if people don't agree with what you're doing, they at least know your reasoning for it.
Yeah.
And so I think that I've tried to make that a hallmark in both as a candidate and in the office I'm serving.
Let's talk about your reasoning when you set up that hotline for market basket workers to call if they were experiencing any issues involving termination. Had you heard troubling accounts of market basket terminating people in a potentially illegal way when you set that hotline up last week?
No, I mean, what we had been concerned about is this has gone on for so long, and with developments including information that individuals might be laid off part-time and otherwise, we just felt, since we were starting to get calls into the office, that it would be more efficient. It would give some relief to people that they knew they could call if they had a question. And indeed, we've already gotten over 1,000 phone calls since we set that up last week. It also led us to see that many of the questions were about information that was best directed to the Department of Transitional Assistance, because people were wondering if they would get unemployment assistance, for instance. But we felt that this was something we could do that would give people a place to get information, to give us information. And it was really no more or less than that at the time.
So just so I'm clear, right now there are no indications that the company is doing anything dubious from a legal point of view in terms of terminations or anything else?
We are really just getting information from people and mostly giving out information at this time. Again, mostly about collecting unemployment. But we have stressed that one of the reasons that we wanted to keep communication lines open with the employers and the employees is that there are certain rights that attach to people who serve as employees, even if they are part-time and even if they don't have bargaining rights.
How would you like to see that situation resolved? And
well,
I guess I'm asking you here to speak both in your capacity as Attorney General, but also as a candidate for governor and just a private citizen of Massachusetts. What do you want to happen?
Sure. Well, let me talk as a private citizen of Massachusetts. Okay. I would like to see the companies which the two camps are fairly close, as I understand it, in terms of a dollar amount. What I'd like to see is them to be able to sit down and either talk with each other or mediate an agreement that will let those 25,000 workers and their families get back to work, restore the business, bring back what is the value of Market Basket, the customers, all of the people who can't shop there anymore, who are inconvenienced by that, who are going to other stores, and frankly, all of the other businesses, the ripple effects of this and the economy of Massachusetts, and that as Attorney General and as a potential governor of Massachusetts, I'd like to see a great business that's done so well by its employees and its customers just get back to work. Okay. It seems like they could do that.
You filed suit last week against Evan DeBell, the former president of Westfield State, saying that he had concealed or covered up the spending, the inappropriate spending of about $100,000 in state educational institution money. DeBell's attorney told the Globe that your staff never reached out to Evan DeBell himself before filing suit. Is that the case? And if so, why didn't you?
Well, first of all, keep in mind we had an ongoing investigation. We did a thorough investigation, as we always do. And most recently, the Inspector General, who did a very thorough report, issued that report. We found, based upon our own investigation in that report, that there was more than enough evidence in terms of allegations of misappropriation, use of cards for really personal use, for vacations, for family and friends, that it was
Special
sufficient.
private men's camp in Northern California.
We had a lot of details that are outlined in our complaint. They're outlined in the Inspector General's report. And we felt it was important, if we were ever going to be able to recover the money, which we believe is owed back to the Commonwealth, that we should file suit when we did.
Governor Patrick just last week signed into law a bill that would ideally reduce domestic violence, but includes a provision that a lot of critics find troubling. I'm talking about this provision that would keep the names of people involved in domestic violence incidences from being entered into police logs. As you know, critics have said that this is basically going to help abusers continue abusing by covering up their identities. Is that a concern?
Well, I know that we've looked at that bill, and I supported that bill. One thing I know, that many of the bills that have a lot of facets like this, there's a good reason to do that. What we need to look at to see if there are unintended consequences, obviously, and we can keep an eye on that.
Okay, so you're potentially open to changing that or reassessing that?
I'm always going to do that with a statute, to make sure we want to protect people and we don't want to have unintended consequences of any bill we pass.
You and the governor went back and forth about a month ago on his, I think it's fair to say, on his legacy. You made a statement to the effect of, if I'm governor, I don't think you're going to see something like the Annie Ducan scandal or the New England compounding pharmacy scandal. Then the governor said, well, I hope that when Martha Coakley is governor, she has the good fortune to not have those sort of things happen. Your rival, Steve Grossman, jumped in and called your comments foolish and lacking in sophistication. What were you trying to get at there? What is it that you think you would do as governor that would help prevent those sort of things from happening that Governor Patrick has not done? Well,
and to put that into hindsight, you know, I had a long conversation up in the Lowell Sun, and we were talking about a variety of things, and it was really about looking forward. It was hindsight is 20/20, of course. We all now know that those things happen, and I think whether the next governor was Governor Coakley or Governor Patrick, we would make an effort to make sure that we didn't have that happen again. We know some of the things we can do to prevent it. Better supervision in the Department of Public Health. That lab is now under the authority of the state police, for instance, understanding the forensics and the criminal consequences, knowing that, you know, and I've proposed changes to the Department of Children and Families that I think will fix some of the things that we've seen in the past, which, by the way, are 25-year-old problems. They're not relative just to the last 8 years or the last 16 years.
So you weren't saying that you would, say, bring in a different management philosophy than Governor Patrick has had, or that you weren't trying to position yourself as running against his legacy?
No, what I was saying is that I think we all have seen things that have gone very well in the last 8 years, and I've given Governor Patrick great credit in a tough economic time for his investments in innovation and education infrastructure. But we also know we can always build on what we know we can do better.
Briefly, final question for you. Jack O'Brien, the former probation commissioner, was just convicted in federal court after being acquitted on not identical charges but related charges in state court. There's a perception that the state can't do enough or do what it should to crack down on corruption on Beacon Hill, and that it's up to the feds. What's your response to that frustration that some people feel?
Well, I don't think they should be frustrated. I think I've always worked cooperatively with federal authorities because the federal government has investigatory tools and statutory tools like the charges they brought against John O'Brien not available at the state level. And so as long as those investigations proceed, we get the right result as we did in that case, I think that Massachusetts is well served.
Would you like to see our state anti-corruption law get a little more robust?
I think that I have worked in ways as we started our public corruption division to look at ways that we can address those issues. But I do think sometimes there's a role for the federal government working with the state government to make sure that we have an honest and a government with integrity.
All right. Attorney General Martha Coakley, thank you for being here. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.